All right, we are back for the second episode today talking about the Miami Marlins. A few corrections I want to make in this post LeBron to the 76ers right before we started recording, but a few things. So I know we both thought that the Red Sox were last. They're not. They're third place in the American League
Now they
East.
are. Yeah.
They can't seem to lose until yesterday, but there's that, and the trade deadline is on August 3rd,
So
which is
that's
Monday.
next week, right?
Yes, that is, well, not this next Monday, but the Monday after.
Okay. All right. Cool.
But
Cool. Cool.
other than that, yeah, man, it's woof. These past two series, man, it's been really hard to really watch. I mean, some of these are very winnable games. I guess I'll start off with the broader points before we get to each individual game, but really watching these two games, these two series, really one of which I was there for the first game in Houston. Man, dude, the lack of starting pitching depth really kind of shows. Really, not really just pitching depth in general, but I mean, they wasted two good starts in my really three good starts in my opinion. With the first Sandy start
Yeah.
against Milwaukee on Friday, where he only gives up the one hit and the home run. Yuri, which
Yuri
I
was
was
pretty good.
watching that game on the way to Houston on Sunday. That was probably one of the best starts I've seen from Yuri since the A's game. And yesterday, well, Wednesday, I should say, with Sandy coming out for the eighth, I would have thought after Pena were to get walked or get on base that he's out, but he has to face Jordan, which got a whole lot of Jordan Alvarez and Jeremy the Pena show against the with that whole wow, just those two guys can hit is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. But and kind of want to hear some of your thoughts too about before we get into these games.
No. Yeah. So it's actually been really alarming, to be honest with you. I think if you would have asked all Marlins fans 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they would have been feeling really really good about where this team was at. I mean, July 9th, this team was 52-42, 10 games over 500. So you're feeling pretty good, and the team is rolling. And then all of a sudden, they've lost nine in a row. They've gotten swept in three straight series. And I think if you were to watch these games closely, a lot of it has to do with bad luck. It's not like the Marlins haven't been getting good contact in any of these games during this losing streak. I mean, there's been times where guys like Lopez, Edwards, Stowers, they've made good contact with the ball, and for whatever reason, it just wouldn't it just wouldn't get put in play. We've played some pretty good defenses. Cleveland is a really good defensive team, and so is Milwaukee. So we've been playing against really good defensive teams, and we're just not getting a lot of luck in terms of our batting. But this team is also playing really lackadaisical. I mean, I forgot what game it was, but I know there was a game in which we recorded three errors. Um,
It was the second Brewers game because it was four
yes,
initially, but they took one off. But
yes, that's right,
two of them
that's
were
right.
by auto. But I think you got
Yeah,
that exact same game.
yeah, and I think that was the game in which he got hurt, like his finger or something,
Yes.
and he had to stay out a couple games. But this team is just not executing to the level that we saw them execute with 2 weeks ago, and it's been really really frustrating. And as you mentioned, we've gotten some good starts from our pitchers. Sandy's had a couple of good starts. Yuri's been looking pretty good, um, and like you just mentioned, he had that one start very similar to his outing against the A's when we were in Sacramento. But it's just this team is just taking a nosedive. They're just falling off a cliff, and I think more than anything, and maybe you'll agree, but I think more than anything, the biggest contributor to this losing streak has been our lack of offense. Uh, we're just not getting on base. I kind of feel like we're chasing a little bit too much. Um, there's just a lot of. I mean, there was a. I think it was in Houston. I saw a tweet where it was in back-to-back games. I think the first two games of the series in Houston, back-to-back games in which the Marlins recorded 10 total strikeouts in two consecutive games, which is ridiculous. And a lot of those were on swings and misses. So I kind of feel like we're chasing too much or being a little bit too aggressive, and we're just not playing attentive enough. Like, we're playing aggressive offensively, but we're just not executing when we need to, when that's just biting us right in the behind.
Yeah, I mean, offense is kind of one of the things too, because some of it has come off the long ball. With Griffin Conine, who's been one of the bright spots in this team, in my opinion, is in that Milwaukee series and part of the Houston series too. And the other bright spot I would say is really Joe Mack because hey, I got to see him hit a home run. He had two home runs in this Astros series, but part of it is offense, and part of it too is just, I mean, it's the bullpen. The lack of the injured guys that you want to see come back. Some of them start to kind of come back. King's close to returning. Eknis, for I don't know what was that whole thing yesterday. He was supposed to pitch in AAA game, but it turns out he didn't. It was a whole error.
Yeah.
The whole fiasco with that, and you're still kind of waiting for when Kemner's coming back, when Anthony Bender's coming back. But part of that is pitching too. It's been a culprit of I hate to say this for one in particular guy, but it's been a culprit of three guys. It's Pete Fairbanks in the Milwaukee series who, yeah, that was really bad. That last
Yeah.
game against William Contreras. I mean, you can't write that up any more worsely than that. And Calvin Fauché in that second Milwaukee game, and I don't think he played against Houston, but
No, I don't think he did.
and Lake Blocker, which yeah, I got to witness that one, and man in the first Brewers game, which I'm not going to give him too much flack for, but the first Astros game, I'm sitting here in the
Yeah.
stands, I'm watching him trot out, and I'm like, he better not pitch to Jordan Alvarez. And lo and behold, he pitched
He
to Jordan
pitches to
Alvarez,
Alvarez.
and he got a full experience of the Jordan Alvarez show, which I was like, look, you like part of my issue with this too with this losing streak is some of like Clayton's, like I mentioned before in the first episode, how Clayton's bad decisions sometimes are very loud. So even though he's rectified some things with some of the comments he brought up in the last Houston game with Jacob Marcy, but man, dude, I don't when I heard him talk about it on Wednesday after the game, him not really thinking about walking Yoran Alvarez or even for that matter Jeremy Pena, I'm like sitting here, I'm like, why? You're sitting here, you're like, dude, why? Like those two. I mean, I know Fish on First they gave Jordan Alvarez the series MVP, but you could have argued it's a tie between both of them because they were both so effective in that series. Which it comes to a point where you're like, why don't you just intentionally walk them both?
I know, yeah, especially in that last game against Houston. It's not only did you not only did Clayton not think of intentionally walking Alvarez, but he also did that in the worst situation. You're expecting Sandy to get through the order a fourth time, and you're having Sandy face the best hitter in baseball.
Possibly triple crown winner for
Yes,
the first time since Miguel Cabrera, mind you.
yes, a triple. So you have a potential triple crown winner, the best hitter in the game. A lot of people are saying the best player in all of baseball, and you're expecting Sandy in the bottom of the eighth inning to get through the order a fourth time, uh, with the best hitter in baseball. Like that does not make a lot of sense to me. Like it just doesn't. Like how can you not? Like when I think of Jordan Alvarez, I think of like some of the older players like Albert Pujols. Like you just know that when he steps at home plate, when he's getting ready to bat, that him, David Ortiz, like any of these guys, just walk him. He's a great power hitter. He's always sending moonshots everywhere. Like just walk him. It's a tie game. You still have a chance to win it. And people forget too that we ended up coming back. We were down 2-0, and I think we tied it in the fifth of that game. So the
Yes.
fact that yeah, yeah, yeah. So the fact that you tell Sandy to go out there face Jordan a fourth time, I don't know how you can expect a different result than what we ended up getting, which was that 3-run homer that ended up winning that game for Houston and allowing them to sweep us. So it's just like he doesn't like Clayton. He does a lot of good things in this clubhouse, and you could tell the players really like him, but he doesn't make the best decisions at times, and it shows up in almost every series. A minor decision that he makes that's not smart, a major decision like this whole debacle against Houston, with Sandy. But it's almost like, how many times is he going to screw up in situations where common sense should prevail? It's my it's mind boggling, man. It's mind boggling. It really is.
Well, and we'll go to, I guess, the individual games now, starting with the Brewers series with game one. And another decision of his that I was genuinely kind of wondering, what in God's name are you thinking you're doing in some aspects is, Griffin Conine scores the only run for the Marlins in that first Brewers game, and Leonel Jimenez pinch hits for him. And
Hmm.
because of the lefty-lefty matchup, which, okay, it's okay and all, but my whole thing with that was with the 10th inning in general. I will get to the other issue I had with the Contreras late challenge that Clayton should have had something to say, but he didn't, which it was a really late challenge and he should have said something to begin with. But is why, at least, why wasn't Ruiz used in the 10th inning? Whether it was running the bases, whether it was trying to lay down bunt, I don't know why. Like, even if you're going to keep Jimenez in, why don't you want him to bunt? Like, it's you're basically one run away from taking the lead against the Brewers and the first game, and man, that 10th inning, man, it's just the bottom third of that lineup offensively was just a black hole, and that was just really hard to watch.
No, yeah, that loss, that extra inning loss to Milwaukee, that was the opener, right? Of that series.
Yes, that was the Sandy game where he allows 4 walks, but it still was a great outing. He only
It
allowed
was.
one run despite the 4 walks, got out of some jams, and he continues to show why he's still one of the greats in this franchise.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm remembering that game, and you mentioned the whole Leo Jimenez situation, and it's just, again, when you talk about the decisions, that's another one right there. I don't understand, the whole lefty lefty thing, whatever you want to call it. That's been our philosophy in building our batting orders on a daily basis this season, but it hasn't worked. Like, do you remember a time where this worked? Because I don't. Like, I don't remember this ever working. So it kind of, like, it's almost like you're coming up with the best ways to lose. Like, this coaching staff, whoever's in charge of making the decisions, it's almost like they're purposely putting out these lineups to lose games. I mean, I know that's not what they're doing, but it feels like that when they never change things. They never change their approach and how they build these lineups. It's always about matchups more than letting your best bats go out there and try to contribute. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's been times where Griffin Conine has been out of the lineup. And I'm saying to myself, why is he out? He's been one of the best bats that we've had in this recent stretch. Why is he not playing today? Why is he not batting? You talk about a guy like Esteury Ruiz. Ruiz is on base machine. He's always finding ways. He's always finding ways to get on base. Why is he not in there in a pinch hit situation? And instead you're keeping a guy like Leo Jimenez, who, quite frankly, hasn't done much with the bat. I still don't understand why he continues to have chances with this organization. I don't know why he's still on the roster. Probably because of a lack of depth, but at the same time, he's not doing anything. So my thought process is this: if this guy, or if you have a certain amount of players, including Jacob Marcy, which we have yet to talk about, we got to talk about Jacob Marcy because he's been abysmal. But
We'll get to that in the Astros part, but yes, that
yeah, but it's like, if you have guys who are not producing on a daily basis or on a semi-daily basis, why do you still play them? Why do you not make a change? Why don't you have guys that are actually going to produce offensively, play? Let them get a start. Even if they might go 0 for 4 that day. Let's just say that Ruiz starts, and if he goes 0 for 4, fine, I'll take it, knowing that he gives us a better chance to win than Leo Jimenez or Graham Pauly or any one of these other guys that we just keep sticking in there here, here and there.
Now, funny enough, speaking of Graham Pauly, kind of one of the, many. I know Fish on First. They did a episode about possible bats just to call up, and funny enough, Graham Pauly was one of them. And I I think outside the first Houston game that I was at, he is yet to really have another really at bat, which he's another guy that you're kind of like, hey, we need more firepower really on offense. He should get a chance. Kemp Alderman, I would like to see him get a chance. Andrew Pintar, I know just because Cam Carroll is just now starting in AAA. As much as I really want to see Cam Carroll, and most fans do, but not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah, Pintar, just something for center field, honestly. Or if you really wanted to add a DH, Augustine Ramirez, just he has the bat. You
He
can give him
does.
the
He
bat,
does.
but you just need some type of offense that that comes in some type of way, and offensively, man, I know some of these scores, they've looked close, but it just feels like after X amount of innings, I like the 4-run inning in the sixth against the Brewers, it just felt like the game was out of hand. The
Hmm.
Houston game after the second inning, after that
Fell out
abysmal
of
six
hand.
run
Yeah.
inning, the
Yeah.
game was out of hand despite Hicks cutting it to two. It's kind of like that, but back on the Brewers series, with the second game, Max Meyer, man, unfortunately he gets hurt in this. I don't know if he got hurt in this game really, but it's the day after that he gets hurt. He's on the 15-day IL now with a next sprain or strain, but he's
Pretty
having to see a
frustrating. Yeah.
guy in person in Los Angeles now for a specialist. But I mean, look, I personally thought, despite the rocky start, the command being very out of whack at times, which is uncharacteristic for Max. He only allows 2 runs. I thought he did fine. I would have thought like to see him go for I believe it was the fourth inning, but man, we talked about the 3 errors, 2 of which by Otto, 1 of which by Stowers, but they walked so many guys in that game. It was kind of like reminding me of that Yankees series where they walked like 30 guys, and yeah, it was hard to watch. But the one bright spot that we kind of brought up earlier with this, yes, this was a game that Ruiz played, was with them bunting and how great the bunting works when they actually use it. Like one of the things I feel like when we look back towards the end of the year and say what are some things that we would like to see this team do more of, which I would really like to see this team do more of when there's not a lot of power and we gotta find ways to get creative with runs. It's bunting, and I think Ruiz had a really great bunt there. I want to say I don't know who else, but Ruiz was real standout with that bunt. They got the bases loaded. I believe they got the bases loaded in that game, and it
Yeah,
was
I think
a
so.
thing of beauty to watch because it's like, man, we have a lot of great. This team has a lot of great guys that can bunt. Otto can bunt. I know he can bunt. X can bunt. Javier
Yeah.
Sano, Jacob Marcy. For what it's worth, he can bunt. He's done it before. Stereo Ruiz. It's like, why haven't they done more of this? Just to throw off guys. I know sometimes they act like they're going to bunt and then they don't. It's just kind of like it's somewhat infuriating to watch because some of these people can really run, and you just want to see that more. And I guess the final note that I put on here, because at the time the offense was so bad that the third place game in the World Cup, France versus England, they scored 10
Yeah.
goals in one game in
And we
comparison
scored
to
10 runs in like three combined
well,
games, right?
at the time before Griffin Conine,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah, he
yeah.
gets the 3-run home run,
Yeah.
in garbage time. I hate to say it was garbage time, but it was, and he hits a 3-run home run, and I'm just sitting here. I'm like, yeah, well, I take that back, but it's something that should be pointed out that it was mentioned whenever I was talking to Justin here during the second Brewers game.
No, yeah, that's Yeah, I remember you texted me that little stat that you found, and I was just cracking up because it just puts it in perspective as to how lackluster our offensive production has been. And you mentioned um the whole bunting thing. I don't know why, and I might have mentioned this the last episode. I don't know why this team doesn't play to their strengths. Like, I really don't understand. Like, this team is solid when it comes to base running. They have speed. You know, that's one of their strongest traits is their speed along the base paths. This team is not a power hitting team. So if you're not, then you're going to need to find some way to win. And our speed along the bases is how we win games. So I don't understand how you can have guys not bunting more. And like you mentioned, we are bluffing a little bit. We're trying to throw pitchers off. With the bluffing. We're pretending to bunt, and then we go back to we just take pitchers, and then we go back to regular swings. But I kind of feel like this team would benefit so much more if they would allow themselves to play to their strengths. If guys like X and Otto bunt more, Jacob Marcy bunt more, if these guys bunt and if they get on base and if they advance runners more, then you I kind of feel like we're gonna win more games because small ball is what prolongs innings. I've always been a big proponent of small ball. And when we were doing good, I was kind of drawing the comparisons between this team and the 2003 Marlins because I kind of get like a little bit of a similar feel in terms of how they play. They're not a big power hitting team, a lot of base hits, a lot of doubles, the typical leadoff guy, so I'm drawing a lot of parallels between this Marlins team and the 2003 team that won the World Series. And it's because of those reasons, but unlike the '03 team, we're trying to be somebody that we're not. At least that's what I'm feeling, and I don't think that's helping us in the long run. So I really do believe that it will be more of a benefit if we play to our strengths. If we play to our strengths, then I feel like we're gonna get this thing turned around.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've been like, I know I put this like a few times in some of the group chats where I'm like, man, dude, all right, man, it's got a bunt here just to get over guys, and then they can try to like try to get a sack fly here, and man, dude, it is really, again, I, I've also am a big proponent of bunting because for one, that was the only thing I was ever good at when I attempted to try to play some form of baseball was bunting with a wiffle ball bat for one, and two, bunting is a very skillful thing and it's a very helpful tool when you use it correctly. I mean, the Rays are really good at it. The
Yeah,
Brewers, we've seen it. They are really good at it, and they man,
exactly.
they got it down to a science, damn near, which
Yeah,
is
the Brewers are like us.
yes.
The Brewers are like us. They just execute better.
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. You're having to watch, guys like Mitchell and Terang, man. Those two guys, man. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, well, Gary Mitchell, blah blah blah. But dude, that I mean, especially when he robbed the hit from both Mack and Hernandez, it was like, man, dude, like that was just great
Hmm.
defense there. And that's the other thing too, like with this Brewer series, like as you mentioned before, just they executed just a little bit that much more better than the Marlins did. And
Yeah.
those two guys, with Terang and Mitchell, those two really stood out to me a lot when I was watching them because you're seeing Terang just making great plays after great plays, man. Which sometimes you thought, oh, okay, they're going to get a hit here, they're going to get on base, and no, just Terang just shuts that down, shuts the door on that completely. Which I was just amazed by that, really.
No, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you just hit it on the head, the whole terrain play and Garrett Mitchell, I don't even know how many times. I mean, how many times did he rob us? Like three times throughout the series, and I know he did it twice in one game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Uh, so it that right there is, I touched on the, some of it's been unlucky. Our lack of offensive production has, been unlucky. Part of it has, and you could definitely look at that as an example. I Garrett Mitchell completely tore us in that Brewer series. I could tell you that is brutal, absolutely brutal to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's now to the infamous third game of this Brewer series. But we're gonna get to the good part first before we talk about that guy. But again, one of the things I talked about earlier, though, with this great Yuri Perez, outing, someone, I believe it was Eli Sussman of Fish on First when he did the live stream of this, which I do watch from time to time. I do comment, say my piece in their live streams, but the thing that he brought up that I was not aware of, but which is partially true. The more I start to think about it with Yuri Perez in these last couple of outings, is he's starting to get a lot more ground balls in comparison to what he usually kind of does, on average, since he's a very fly ball dependent guy, which, really the fact that he's getting a lot more ground balls, as we saw in that, great double play that Javier Sanoa was able to turn right there, that's part of it, which, I really was a big fan of that. Like, man, he's doing a lot better in terms of that, which I still believe he needs to find a ground ball pitch because that's really going to help him out a lot to be a ace level type of pitcher like a Mizorowski, a Cam Schlittler. But that's still really the only thing I think Yuri is missing other than that. But some other notes I put down, Kay Gibson, he makes an appearance in this series. I think he surprisingly shows, you know, um, some good in him, some good stuff in him that I always thought he had, and now it's starting to show more and more. Michael Pearson continues to be, another bright spot in this team that, I mean, look, if he has to start closing out games, which I know he hasn't, you got to take a shot on that. And yeah, dude, this was the Ruiz home run too. Yes,
Yeah,
it was, yeah, because I wrote down, Ruiz, in my opinion, at least in terms of the bat wise, despite the defense sort of being like Owen Casey, which that showed too in that Houston series, unfortunately. But hey, he might be one of the best bats that Peter Bendix has signed in this tenure, man, because it's dude, it's a great thing to watch. But yes, the unfortunate thing besides all this great stuff, the unfortunate thing was, yeah, Peter Pete Fairbanks, man. That I mean, look, this is like coming off of the first game where he gets bailed out by a called strike that I forget who it was at bat. I think it was Lara, like the rookie
yeah,
Brewers, that he doesn't even challenge it. Which you're sitting here,
yep, yep,
like,
yep.
oh, he's going to challenge it for sure. And he doesn't. He gets bailed out, and uh man, dude,
Yeah,
that whole thing really just made me mad because I knew that he's double play away because he had Contreras at the plate. That's why I
yeah.
kept telling myself when you know, I was in the Walmart in Houston just walking around. I'm just like, it's like he's double play away because William Contreras, excuse me, is a double play candidate. You're just hoping, right? And nope, he gives up the 3-1 bomb, and it's infuriating to watch. Which another point that Eli Sussman brought up was that he's a very fly ball dependent guy now, which he's basically allowed that a lot of fly balls this year in comparison to not getting as much grounders. Which yeah, that kind of clocks out pretty accurately because besides his government mandated runs in this point in this 3-run bomb he gave up, it's just man, sometimes you wish he can produce some ground balls just to get out of his own doing, which he hasn't pitched since this game. Which I mean, yeah, it was sort of great for me, and I have it's in the wrong context of form of this. Man, dude, it's very puzzling to really see this closer situation, how it's kind of turned out for Pete Fairbanks.
No, yeah, that's I think that game in Milwaukee, I think if he had a chance before that, then this must be his last chance. He can't go out there again. He can't. He can't. P Fairbanks, um, I don't know. Like he has to be considered one of the worst, if not the worst, free agency signing in this franchise's history. He has to be in that discussion already. I mean,
I mean, yeah, I mean the Heath Bells, the Tim Andersons, and
yeah,
Ozzy
he's
Garcias,
getting
but.
Exactly, and it's even worse considering the type of role that he has. Like you're getting paid. How much is it? 13 million, 15 million, and somewhere in that
13
ballpark.
million, but
13. You're
but
getting paid.
there's one thing I will say. Was I'm
Hmm.
sorry to let kind of
Yeah,
cut
yeah.
you off there, but there's one thing I will say that I think people kind of it's a very surprising part, despite how it may feel watching Pete Fairbanks. He's only blown tradition like 3 saves, which it doesn't feel
It,
like it.
no, it feels way more than three blown saves. I mean, this guy. As I was saying, he's infuriating. He's infuriating to watch, and $13 million for a closer is a lot of money. And usually give that to the top notch guys. Like an Aroldis Chapman, who's making like almost the same amount of money, if I'm not mistaken, almost identical salary, and his job is to just get 3 outs a night, just 3 outs, and he can't do that. And this walk off home run he gave up to Contreras to end the Brewers series has to be the final nail in the coffin. I am surprised that he has not been DFA'd. I've been calling for him to get DFA'd for many many weeks now. It feels like it's been almost the entire season. He has an ERA over seven, which is horrendous, and it's even worse for a guy who's getting paid, like I said, to just get 3 outs. He's not a starter. He's not a reliever. He's a closer, making 13 million, and he has an ERA over seven. He's just been absolutely horrendous, and he's cost us so many games that I can't even remember how many games he's cost us because it's been so common. And it wasted a completely tremendous start from Yuri Perez. I remember, I think he had like nine punch outs in that game,
Yep,
9 strikeouts through 6 innings,
strikeouts.
which is tremendous. As you mentioned, he does need to find a ground ball pitch, and once he does, he's definitely going to be one of the upper echelon. He's definitely going to be on the upper echelon of pitchers in Major League Baseball, in my opinion, because he has all the tools to be that. Um, and we got a great performance out of him, where we saw the ground ball, we saw him striking out guys. I mean, he was just on his game. And, the relievers come in. Cade Gibson, I believe, came in that game. Am I right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Cade
Kate
Gibson.
Gibson. Yeah,
Peterson also came in,
Peterson.
and they did their job. Look, the bullpen undoubtedly has been a flaw. There's no question about it. But in that bullpen, there's still a lot of guys who have done a lot of good things this season. Touched on Michael Peterson, John King. Hopefully he comes back soon. So we have some guys out of the bullpen that are very capable and that have contributed to our success this season. So it's not like we have a pitching staff that's completely incapable of winning games. So, the fact that we're seeing a lot of these great efforts get wasted in these late inning situations, especially when Fairbanks is in the game, I mean, it's just brutal. And you can't keep doing this. You can't. If you're the Marlins, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep allowing Fairbanks to go in there, try to get a save because it's not going to work. At this point, you have to cut your losses, and they have to do that. I know Peter Bendix has a great relationship with with Fairbanks because they were together in Tampa Bay for a while, but he's not helping at all. You gotta call a spade, and P. Fairbanks has been undoubtedly one of the worst players on this roster this season.
Well, it's a really good debate between him and Christopher Morel, but that we've finally just gone through the treacherous Brewer series. Now we got to go through the other treacherous series, which was the series against the Astros. Which I guess if you want to say boots on the ground for this series, because I was only there for the first Astros game, which was my first ever experience at a major league ballpark, because I've only ever been to AAA ballparks with the Texas Rangers, once Houston Astros affiliate in the Round Rock Express, which
Yeah.
shout out to them. It's a great place. Del Diamond's a great place. Um, Great time at the game, despite having to watch Jansen Jug blow that. But let's get into the game itself. So yeah, I'm watching the game. Joe Max up to that. He hits a 2-run bomb out of here. Marcy gets on base. Life is great. I'm yelling from the
Feeling
stand.
good.
That's my guy, Joe Mack. what y'all talking about, right? And then, man, that the bottom of the second inning, I didn't even realize one of my friends who I got to see for the first time, who was my brother's roommate. He tells me during that bottom of the second inning, he's like, yeah, he said 50 plus pitches. I'm like, holy crap, dude! Jones had 50 plus pitches, and he's only got, I think he only got the one out or two outs. I don't know. It
It
was
was
mind boggling. And
no, yeah, that second inning, it was like I think Kevin Barral tweeted it on Twitter. I think it was a 42 pitch inning for
yeah,
Jansen Junk. It was like 42 pitches.
yeah, and I'm just sitting here just astounded by it because it's like, I mean, look, yes, the Jeremy Pena Grand Slam, I sort of called that because I was telling my brother and my friends, I'm like, look, this is the last guy you want to see after Spence got walked was Pena and Alvarez, and lo and behold, I hate to be right, but I was right. Like Pena, I mean, look, Conine was close to get to robbing that play. I'll give Conine
He
that.
was.
He
He was
was
close.
close, even though from my vantage point, I didn't think he got it. But when I saw the replay, I'm like, man, he was actually really close. And then I'm like, all right, you got to walk Alvarez here. After what just happened, you got to walk Alvarez. Nope. And your Alvarez just takes that far. And I'm just like, the game's over. The game's
I
over.
know. Yeah, dude, yo, it felt over. It felt over to me when Pena hit that hit that grand slam. It felt over to me, and I was just like you mentioned he was at like 50 pitches. I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice it I made the until I made the conscious decision to look at the scoreboard on the bottom of the screen. I'm like, there's no way he's at 50 pitches because it felt like the inning was going on forever and ever and
Yep.
ever. Like it felt so slow, and I was wondering. I'm like, there's no way this guy's at 50 pitches, and he was just brutal, man. Like Jansen Junk, that is that start is his worst start of the season. And
It's up there between I think the Toronto game and the Rays game in Tropicana. It's
oh
up
yeah, no yeah, but I think this start that we're talking about against the Stros, this is his worst. I mean, he didn't even get through 5 innings. He
there. Yeah,
he, he couldn't even get through 5 innings. I mean, it's just at this point, I'm starting to really wonder: is Jansen Junk a starting caliber pitcher, or is he better coming out of the bullpen? I think he's. I think we should see him, coming out of the bullpen and see how that works because, while he has had solid starts, um, his overall body of work, I think it's mediocre at best. I mean, just look at his numbers: 4-6 so far through all of his decisions. And what's his ERA? Let me see what that is right now. I forgot. I think it's
it's
over
somewhere in the
9.
fours.
I think it's over 5. Yeah, it is over 5. 509. It's 509 as of now.
Yeah,
Um, so it's almost like, is this a guy, you really got to start asking questions. Is this a guy that is good enough to be at the bottom of a rotation? And while he has had his flashes, I don't think that he is. I mean, he's been struggling a lot this season, and this start against the Stros was just catastrophic beyond belief. Um, so there's a lot of questions to ask. When thinking about Jansen Junk, but he's struggling just as much as a lot of other players right now, and that was by far just like his biggest. That was like rock bottom for him. I don't see how it could be worse, in my opinion, for him.
yeah, I would agree too that I do think that he is a better coming out of the bullpen, which is kind of one into an idea that I do want the Marlins to at least experiment with since Braxton Garrett. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get called up anytime in the near
No,
future. I think he might get traded, but that's a whole other different conversation for another time. Um, some other notes I mean that I wrote down. Yeah, the full Jeremy Pena, Yora Alvarez show at full force. Marcy continues to really struggle at the plate, which I'll get to in the third game with one of Clayton's comments about him. But Dax Fulton, a guy that I really like, Dax Fulton. He shows up in this game. but it's in the wrong context. But but he did good. He limited the damage, and that's all you can really ask for when he's basically pitching garbage time. Other than that, some of my experiences from being at Viking Park, which is I guess the newly named ballpark that once was Minute Maid that now the Marlins got to be a part of now with the new name rebranding. But some of the things I really did enjoy about being there, despite the awful score, which I guess we should mention this too, that Heriberto does get a RBI single in the top of the ninth with Josh Hader coming out. That was cool. That was cool to see his interest. I won't lie. And what was that? Oh, and he hit a two-run bomb. But even
Yeah.
when I saw it happen live, I was kind of like, it's
Yeah. It's
it was
like, I mean, it's nice, but it's over. So,
exciting.
like,
Uh, but other than that, I enjoyed being out there at the ballpark, even though it took forever to find my seats. We had to walk around in a circle, what it felt like. But yeah, I saw where Marlins TV was at, saw where they were located at. I thought that was cool to see where they're located at because
nice.
I thought, wasn't sure where they were located, but they're there. And yeah, other than that, it was a great time. I would like to come back there. Maybe not for when they play the Marlins because I'm bad luck, I guess. But we're gonna try our luck next year when the Marlins go to Arlington in September. But
Yeah.
on to the second game. The second game was the Tyler Phillips game, which he gives up the 2 runs. One of them being yet again a Jeremy Pena home run that I wasn't sure it was a home run, but it was ruled a home run. But regardless, yeah, there was a lot of this was I believe another winnable game to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but the wait, but the another thing that that really showed his ugly head throughout this 9 game stretch was a lot of mental mistakes. Javier Sanoa with the throwing error. Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe that was. Oh, this was a triple play game. Okay, so yes, this was the game I'm thinking of where, Vasquez was catching because someone got hurt at the beginning of the game, which I don't these errors, man. These errors sometimes they really do infuriate me. The bad throw that Joe Mack had, the few blemishes that
Yeah.
Joe Mack has had, that's one of them. To Stowers and Stowers kind of rushing a throw to Tyler Phillips there, and yeah, the lack of pitching depth shows a lot in this losing streak as well. And another guy who surprisingly, I feel like now starting to talk about more because of his struggles is Xavier Edwards. Man,
Hmm.
it feels like I don't know how many strikeouts he's had since coming out of the break, but man, he's striking out a lot more than what when he kind of usually does, which is not a lot. And it feels like every game now he's had at least one strikeout or two. I don't know what's going on with that, but
Yeah.
X.
Yeah. Edwards has been striking out a lot more, and I think him more than anybody. I think he is, I guess, like the face, if you will, of this whole losing streak and these struggles, because X is a guy that him and Otto, it's both. Both have been struggling ever since All Star break finished. But Edwards, he's just been on a decline. Um, but I kind of feel like when you see guys like Edwards go 0 for 4 constantly on a consistent basis, like what we're seeing now, and when you see guys like Edwards and Lopez, excuse me, struggling the way that they have, um, that sort of becomes like the ultimate message to the fans, to everybody, that this team is just on a cold streak right now. Like there's just nothing that you could do that's going to turn this thing around. The only thing that'll turn this thing around is them actually playing competent baseball. And as you were talking about, they haven't. The errors have been ludicrous. When I saw Joe Mack miss that throw to second the other day, I'm like, wow. If Joe Mack is going to miss a throw to second base, which he rarely has done this year, if he's going to do that, then that is like the ultimate example. as to where this team is right now. Because if you see him missing a throw to second base, which to him he could do that in his sleep, when you see him doing that, then it's almost like there's nothing else that you need to see that's proof, that's evidence as to how bad this team has been, um, and how cold they've been, quite frankly. And Sonoha, that throw to Stowers from third to first, that was horrendous. You don't see that at all from him. You just don't. So a lot of these errors, a lot of these mistakes you're noticing, and it's just like this is what a bad team looks like. And we're playing like a bad team. This team is playing like the bad news bears. They're doing anything and everything to lose games. And these mental mistakes and these fundamental errors is exactly, one of the reasons why they've been struggling for as much as they have.
Yeah, this is despite the fact that they get the second triple play in franchise history that I was I had because excuse me, let me I was all over the place there for a second, but
No,
when
yeah.
the triple A happened, because that's how good it was, that gets me to mess up my words, but
Yeah.
but it was just kind of one of those things where I kind of just turned off the game after a while because like look, it's 5-1, I believe at that point, and when they turned the triple play, it was like man, like
That was
felt kind of
fun.
random. It was cool to watch, but it just
It
felt
was
very
fun. Yeah.
random
It
that
was random.
it was just so. And funny enough, it was the first triple play of the season, too, man. Well, for across the league as well, which
Yeah. That's right.
you see the triple play, and you're like, man, this is how good they could be defensively. Where like this got to be more consistent. Maybe not so much as seeing the triple plays because triple plays are really hard to do. But
Yeah. They're
like
rare.
it,
That's that type of defense, that stout defensive play. Exactly. That's what you want. That's what you want this team to play as. You want this team to play that tight, defense. That defense that's not going to make mistakes. That's going to shut the other team down. You know, so it's so disappointing because and we talked about it before. This team has so much talent. There is a reason why at the beginning of the season, several pundits picked the Marlins as a potential wild card team because they have a lot of talent. They do. They have a
yeah,
lot of talent. And surprisingly, despite us losing 9 games in a row, we're still in it. I think we're like a game and a half
two
behind
games.
2 games
Yeah, behind the D backs, which
behind Arizona.
which is funny enough because that's kind of what I put in the thumbnail too when I was making it. It's a picture of Griffin Conine after he strikes out, I believe, in the
Yeah.
seventh inning. He said it's thank shout out to Marlins Network though for showing that video so that way I could use that particular still image of a screenshot
Yeah.
because that's what it has really felt like to watch them lately, man. Just yeah, despite all the bright spots, which we'll get into the third game too, which another bright spot that now is leading Major League Baseball in caught stealings and Joe Mack. So yeah, to kind of
Yeah.
talk about third game, one interesting thing that kind of pointed out for that was Jacob Marcy not being in the lineup for this game in particular, especially against a righty. I'm paraphrasing this, but Clayton did talk about basically reducing Marcy's playing time, benching him, whatever word you like to use, and kind of acknowledging, his rough season at the plate, despite the defensive prowess. I put that in quotation marks because his arm strength's not the greatest, but
No.
the way that he can cover the field and make, great plays, he can. Despite that, he starts Ruiz, which, the one thing I always say with Ruiz is be careful what you wish for defensively because errors like that with Ruiz, which he did get the error for that. I forget what happened, but he has the error there, which, yeah, not
Hmm.
great, but it's kind of what it is, when you get with Ruiz. And speaking of Ruiz, he's still second and third in this game, I believe, in the top of the eighth, and yet another blemish of this team's struggles is not really getting him home with no outs because I
They don't
believe
get anybody home. They don't
with
get anybody home. I think in the first inning, It was the first inning of that last game in Houston. The first inning of the game, they load the bases, and they can't bring anybody home.
Well,
I don't
Conan
understand
was
that.
close, I will admit.
I mean,
He was,
yeah, he was. Yeah, he was close, but it's almost like how again, to me, our biggest Achilles heel has been runners in scoring position. Whenever we have a guy at second base or third, we just can't send him home. I don't understand why we keep struggling and bringing guys home. And it's just how do you load the bases? It's the first inning. You're trying to end the losing streak. And then it's almost nothing. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing that we're doing that's good right now. And it's almost it's gotten to a point where anytime I see that we have a runner on second or third, I'm like, well, the inning's over. Like it doesn't even feel like we're gonna score because these guys just can't send anybody home. So that's just really frustrating.
yeah, kind of like to wrap up about this before we get to the preview against the Padres. Um, Joe Mack now leads Major League Baseball. Last time I checked, because I mentioned this before, with 19 stolen bases, caught stealing. Yeah, 19 caught stealing. Great for Joe Mack. Hopefully, he somehow, some way, is a Gold Glove guy. I really doubt it, but yeah, he had such a late start to the year with him being called up in May. But he just continues to be just generational talent behind the plate. Yeah, he has a really great series against the Astros, and yeah, San he literally did all he could. I'll give him that. Yeah, I know a lot of people want to put the blame on him because he gives up the home run and whatever, but honestly, I understand to
No.
some aspect that you don't want him to get the eighth. Because funny enough, Calvin Fauché does make an appearance this year. He does. I did forget about that. He does fine, which is very unlike him in some
Yeah.
aspects. But look, I'm not even mad that Sandy got the eighth. He genuinely did all he really could. Yes,
Yeah,
I
he
know
did.
you don't want him to face Jordan for the fourth time, or else that's going to happen. But yeah, it's just been really rough, man. Now we move on to the Padres series, which is today. Game one's today with Marquez versus a to be determined yet. But if you ask me
It'll probably
personally,
be. Yeah, I am not to cut you off, but I saw a tweet. I forgot who it was. I believe it was Christina Di Nicola or Kevin Barral on Twitter. It was one of those two, and they did say that that there's a strong possibility that today's opener against San Diego is going to be a bullpen game.
yeah, I heard something like that too with a Ryan Gusto start, maybe Blake Blocker start with a Dax Fulton piggyback, which I guess going into this is something too that I would personally really like to see because I mean, look, it's better because if they're not going to call it Braxton Garrett, I would just like them for them to do these piggyback style games that the Seattle Mariners have done with success, mind you. Maybe not on the road, but they've had success doing this at home at least. Where they put out a guy, let's just say, we use Lake Blocker as an example. He opens up, gets you the first 3 innings, 3 to 2 innings, and then a Tyler Phillips, Dax Fulton, or Jansen Junk comes in to do the bulk work, and then you kind of save a lot of arms by doing that. I really like to see him to experiment with that a bit. Maybe when you get King back and you get a couple of these guys back, or you trade for another legit starting pitcher, I would like to see that because I think it personally could work better. Maybe not,
Mm-hmm.
but it's better than just trying to
Trot out
hope
the
and
same stuff.
pray.
Yeah.
Better than to hope and pray that a guy like Jansen Junk who gets the Sunday game against Walker Bueller,
Yeah.
then it's better than that, honestly. But so yeah, so Marquez versus to be determined, possibly Dax Fulton with a combination of Lake Blocker or Ryan
Gusto.
Gusto. Sears versus Yuri Perez on Saturday, which I'm just gonna just say, hey man, Yuri Perez, just keep it up, please,
Yeah.
please.
Yes.
Like this is the Yuri Perez that I've always known you can be. Trust
Exactly.
me. And Sunday is Walker Buehler versus Jansen Junk. Um, yeah, but hopefully Jansen Junk can rebound from that game I had to endure with my eyes on Monday. So fingers crossed, because Yeah, this I'll get into this a little bit later with the next video when we talk about the Philly series, but this is a series that look, you don't want to make history in the wrong things if you're the Marlins because you are 3 losses away from breaking the all-time record of most losses. They're rather tie it with 11. There's two in
Yeah,
97, and you don't want to make the wrong history by setting that record with 12 losses in a row.
yeah. The last time that happened, I think, was 2011.
Yep.
Which, funny enough, I remember, and someone else on Instagram DM'd me the same thing. That year they won 7 in a row, and then they lost 11, and then I think they won like 5 in a row. It was ridiculous. But yeah, it was just bad. But yeah, so yeah, you definitely don't wanna set the new all time franchise record, the longest losing streak with 12. You don't want to do that. That's
Yeah.
If you do that, then just pack it up and go home at this point.
Well, even with that too, especially with the Philly series, who you got to pitch against too, because it's kind of looking ahead a little bit. You're going to play against Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and my good old friend Jesus Luzardo, which I wish he kind of was still a Marlin because man, they could really use a guy like him or Ryan Weathers right now as
That's
we
gonna
speak.
be fun.
But yeah, those 3 pitchers right there, you got to pitch against the Phillies. Those 3 guys through as long as I've been alive as a fan, those 3 guys, when they've pitched against the Marlins, they have taken their lunch money and then some.
Dude,
So,
that's an understatement. Taking their lunch money is an understatement.
well,
It's literally like an adult beating up on a little kid. It's just sad. It's just sad. It's sad. Literally bullying.
yeah.
But yeah,
But to wrap up here with the preview of the Padres series, I mean, look, it's well, like we mentioned here, this is really kind of a must-win series in a lot of aspects. Even if you take 2 out of 3, even if you sweep, if you take 2 out of 3, it doesn't matter because you need some type of positivity going into this trade deadline to where let's just say even if they were sellers, I don't really think they're going to sell a lot besides a couple guys here and there. But man, you really because you're still in this race. You're still in
yeah,
this race despite all of this, despite the 9-game losing streak. I'm still a little bit optimistic with a little bit of caution of saying, look, man, like they can win this series, at least take 1 game off the Phillies. Then you got the Mets in Queens before you play the Bravos after that. Like you can still stay pat and still stay in this race and still give a lot of, fans something to believe with despite this. They again after that 5-1 start, yeah, they stumbled a bit, but they got right back at it. When they lost to Queen that series in Queens in May, they had a great June.
hmm
So you got to see some signs of life here. I hope the streak ends today. I really do, but a possible return of John King, maybe. I know Owen Casey is going to come later, but John King's the start to come back to help out this
yeah,
bullpen that desperately needs arms, especially if they're not going to call up guys like Josh White, Brandon
yeah.
White, Bradley Blaylock, just guys that can help. But
hmm
just some closing thoughts here.
No, yeah, absolutely. This Padre series, as you mentioned, must win. You got to find a way to win 2 out of 3. Like for now, my mindset is to just win a game. Just win a game. I don't care how. Just win a game. You got to start off baby steps because you can't go from losing 9 in a row to saying, okay, let's go win a series. Got to win a game. So if we could win tonight, God be willing, if we win tonight, great. Especially with a bullpen game. Bullpen games are, it's like pulling teeth. So if we could find a way to win tonight, that would be great. But for sure, like you mentioned, a must-win series. San Diego, obviously, they have a lot of talent, but as has been the case with their franchise for the last several years, they've been very disappointing. And this is probably the most underwhelming year that they've ever had with their core, including Tatis, and Machado and whatnot. Um, I believe they're 50 and 54,
53.
53, right? 53. Yeah, so they're 50 and 53. Um, the big thing with the Padres this season has been their injuries, particularly with their pitching staff. Their pitching staff has been absolutely decimated with injuries, and that's including Joe Musgrove, who he's on the 60-day IL. So he's definitely not going to be pitching the rest of the season, and that was a huge blow to them. You're seeing it. You're seeing it throughout the whole season. Their relievers have been decimated by injury as well. Uh, Too many guys to name. Literally, if you, dude, if you go on MLB injury report on Fangraphs or whatever, you're gonna see like literally almost their whole reliever group is having some type of ailment. Um, they've been struggling a lot when it comes to hitting. I actually have some numbers written down here for the season. They're 25th in runs per game, 30th in hits per game. This is out of all MLB teams, by the way. 25th in runs per game, 30th in hits, 28th in batting average, 26th in on base percentage, 26th in slugging percentage. So you get the gist. They haven't had a lot of success batting this season. Um, this is a very winnable series for the Marlins. This is a series that if they execute to their best, they will win. But they're going to have to play clean baseball, which has been a problem all season. They've played clean baseball in several during several stretches, like in June, and then they've played baseball like now, where it's almost like it's a mess everywhere all over the field. So this is a series that the Marlins, if if the Marlins lose this series, it'll be on them more than the Padres being good because they're not a good team. They're they're not, and the record says that. Um, but yeah, but this series against the Padres definitely is probably the most. If you were to ask me right now, I'd say this is the most important series of the season because it's either make or break time. It's either put up or shut up. You either win this series starting today and you get back on track, or you most likely get swept again, set the franchise losing streak record. You break that, and then you continue on this downward spiral. They got to get out of this somehow, some way, and it has to start as soon as possible. It has to start tonight and this weekend against San Diego. It has to start this weekend. It has to, because if it doesn't, the season's cooked.
Well, I guess we're gonna find out starting tonight. Hopefully, they end the streak. But other than that, a couple things I want to get at the end is I want to thank y'all very much for this the support for the first video. A lot of obviously the numbers wise, nothing crazy, but just for starting out this channel, man, it's been a night. It's been a pleasant surprise. We already got some people to subscribe and it's a decent amount of viewers, I would say, for the first video. So appreciate y'all very much. As always, the second one being a very long video is to always please subscribe, leave a comment, like, share with everyone that you know, and interested to talk to y'all again with hopefully good news this time with the Marlins. Who
Hopefully,
knows?
hopefully,
But
hopefully we can talk about better and positive things on the next episode. Because if we don't, then it's gonna be the end of me. Because this is miserable. This is miserable.
but yeah, we'll see y'all for the next episode. Take care, and yeah.
All right, take care.